My name is John Miller, and I live in a small town near Cleveland, Ohio. I am 62, and in my life, I have seen a lot. The army, factory work, marriage, divorce, children growing up, moving houses. I thought nothing could surprise me anymore. But everything changed that spring when I decided to finally clean up the old garage. That garage came to me from my father. He was a practical man, always running the household firmly. Until his death in the 90s, he stayed attached to this house and yard. After he passed, I almost never used the garage, only to pile things inside. The kids' bicycles, boxes of books, tools I had not touched in 20 years. In spring, when the sun finally chased away the cold winds from Lake Erie, I thought it was time to clear the mess. I took a free day and went to the garage early in the morning. The smell of old wood and oil hit my nose as I opened the creaking doors. At first, everything was ordinary. I sorted boxes into piles, throw away, donate, keep. But in the far corner, behind a shelf with rusty paint cans, I noticed a strange hatch in the floor. It was covered with a rug I was sure I had never seen before. My heart skipped a beat. I knew this garage since childhood and never saw any hatch. I bent down, lifted the rug, and saw a metal cover with hinges and a small lock, long rusted. Curiosity won. I grabbed a hammer and hit a couple of times. The lock gave in. Under the lid was a narrow passage going down. A smell of damp and dust filled my nose. I turned on my flashlight and carefully went down the wooden ladder. At the bottom was a small room, something like a basement. On the walls hung old World War II posters, and on the floor stood a massive chest. My heart raced like I was a boy again. I opened the chest and froze. Inside were neatly stacked bundles of letters, several boxes of photographs, and a Colt revolver in a leather holster. I sat right on the floor. My father never mentioned anything like this. I knew he had served in Korea, but I thought his military stories were only what he sometimes told at dinner. I picked up one of the letters. It was addressed to a woman named Marilyn in Chicago and dated 1953. The handwriting was my father's. In the letter, he wrote about some operation, about being entrusted to keep documents in a safe place, and that if anything happened, she must know the truth. I read and could not believe my eyes. It turned out my father lived some secret life we never knew about. The photographs were even stranger. In them, my father stood with men in military uniforms with no insignia. On the back of one photo, it was written, Detroit, 1954. The deeper I dug into the chest, the stronger the feeling grew that my father was involved in something serious. Among the papers, I found an old map of Detroit with marks on several buildings and a small envelope labeled, Do Not Open Unless Necessary. Of course, I could not resist. Inside the envelope were a few old dollars and a key. Unusual, clearly not for any household lock. That evening, I could not sleep. I kept replaying the discovery in my head. It felt like I touched someone else's secret that could change my whole view of the man I thought was just a simple worker, my father. The next day, I decided to investigate. I brought the photographs to a historian friend who had studied military archives for years. When he saw the pictures, his eyes lit up. John, he said, your father was clearly connected to secret operations of the Cold War era. These men in the photos, they are agents. There is almost no open information about them. Cold ran through me. I went back home and again searched the chest. Among the letters, I found one where my father wrote, If you find this, it means the time has come. Trust your instincts and do not tell anyone immediately. As if he knew I would someday discover it all. Days passed, and I carried the key with me, as if it could give me answers. After a week, I decided to go to Detroit and check the buildings on the map. One turned out to be an abandoned warehouse. Inside, I found an old safe, and the key fit. When the door creaked open, I froze. Inside lay a folder with documents, reports, schemes, lists of names. Many were stamped top secret. I realized I was holding a piece of history that had never reached the textbooks. I did not know what to do. On one hand, I wanted to tell the world. On the other, my father clearly wanted this to stay in the family. I brought everything home and hid it back in the garage. Now, sitting by the fireplace, holding one of the letters in my hands, I wonder, how well do we really know our loved ones? Maybe each of us has secrets that will only be revealed decades later. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to A Man's Story, give it a like, and share in the comments, what would you do if you discovered a secret like this?